Good evening, folks, and welcome to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, aka Start and Park Car. We are here on a Tuesday tonight. I thank you guys for joining me. I had a little bit of a personal issue to attend to tomorrow night, but luckily with the entry lists coming out already, it gives us the perfect chance to do this a day later, so we don't have to wait till Thursday to do it. So I hope you guys are a little confused. We're going to be kind of our normal ARCA Racing Podcast show, just on a Tuesday this time rather than a Wednesday. And at 7 p.m. rather than 6. But, of course, we'll go through my little intro, and we will get right into the show. We got a big show for you guys today. So you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media at Start and Park on Twitter, ARCA Racing News, Start and Park News, all that other fun stuff. If you guys want to follow me on there, I'd appreciate it. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for all notifications. We just surpassed 1,070 subs. Can't thank you guys again enough for your continued support. And, of course, check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR media-related content. Whew. All right, let's get right into it, shall we? So one of the few times a year, very few times a year, where we will have two separate ARCA series running at the exact same time, so to say. The ARCA Main Series at Talladega and the ARCA West Series at Kern County. They've been doing this. I think they did this the last couple years. I think it's a good idea to get a lot of eyes on ARCA in the same day. We got the big boys at the biggest racetrack they race at, and then we got the ARCA West guys. Personally, arguably my favorite oval on the West Series schedule next to Irwindale. I think Kern County is a great track. I've been a big advocator for that track of maybe getting a Truck Series date at some point. But, Kern County is definitely one of the more underrated tracks, I feel like, on the ARCA West schedule. But we are actually going to start off with the ARCA West portion of the podcast, and then we will transfer over into the main division part of the podcast. So first, like I said, start off with the ARCA West Series. We had just come off of the previous ARCA West Series race at Irwindale, which was kind of a crash. We had a small crash fest, lots of comers and goers, and Sean Hingorani and Venerini Motorsports picking up, I believe, their very first West Series win. Very first West Series win for Sean Hingorani, and I do believe that was for Venerini. And it was a good race. I think the biggest problem is car counts, but obviously we all know with the real world issues that are very present right now, that the West Coast, in the lower payouts, it's not helping. Unfortunately, with parts and everything just costing through the roof. A lot of teams, unfortunately, have had to shut down. We've lost quite a few West Series teams just in the last couple of years, from full-time to part-time, and now they don't even exist anymore. So I'm still happy we have as many teams as we do. 16 cars, again, not the biggest field, but we've definitely seen that even despite small car counts, the West Series can still put on a very, very entertaining race. We had 18 for Irwindale, 2 withdrew, so we only had 16. And we have, I believe, almost the exact same 16 for this race. Going through the entry list, we have Eric Nascimento in the 4, my favorite, Takuma Koga in the 7, Todd Souza in the 13, Sean Hingorani again in the 15, Tanner Reif in the 16, Landon Lewis in the 17, good old Bobby Hillis, the Brad Smith of the ARCA West Series, 27, Tyler Reif, Tanner's brother, in the 41, RJ Smotherman in the 46, Trevor Huddleston in the 50. Jake Bowman returns to High Point Racing again in the 55. Kyle Keller, teammate to Takuma Koga, he's in the 70. Nick Jonades, Joe Nava and PP1 Motorsports, they're back again after that crash at Irwindale. Bradley Erickson for the Naki Kluwer team. Ethan Nascimento, Eric's brother. And, of course, David Smith. Not the David Smith you're thinking of, the British Columbia David Smith, who is is he the owner or investor of Shockwave Parts? Because I know he's involved with the company somewhat on how they sponsor him. But a good solid field of cars. No starting parks. Bobby's been kind of committed to, after sitting out most of last year, Bobby has kind of come back. Camping World has kind of been a sponsor on the car lately, which has allowed Bobby to come and run these races. Realistically, without Camping World on the car, Bobby would likely not have the funding to come and run these races, which is why he sat out most, if not all, of last year, except for the 2 Phoenix races. So good to see Bobby back, of course. No starting parks, like I said. That's the best news of all. Last year's race at Kern County drew 18 cars, realistically only 17 because we had the 2 Pedroncelli entries from last year. The big difference is, though, when you look at last year's race compared to this year's race, Landon Lewis this time was in the 42 for Bruce Cook. The 99 for Bill McAnally still existed. Both of the Pedroncelli entries, Amber Slagle was actually in the 17. Bruce Cook and the MMI team had brought in 2 cars. Andrew Tuttle was still around. We had Joey East was still around. Bridget Burgess was still around. It's amazing how much the West Series has actually changed in just a year. It really is amazing when you look at last year's results compared to this year's results, just how different the field looks. And realistically, the only person from 2022 to 2023 that's kind of stayed the same is Todd Souza and Takuma Koga. Realistically, Kyle Keller changed numbers, so he doesn't really count. Those are the only really 2 guys that changed, that did not change. If you also want to count in Trevor Huddleston, I guess you can as well. Like I said, Kern County is a good race. We had multiple leaders in the race last year. It's really, although the pavement on the track is not necessarily old, it's still a very tire-consuming race. We know in the West Series, they don't do a lot of modified pit stops, sometimes not at all. I think one of the appeals of the West Series, even compared to the East and main divisions, is like at Irwindale, they did not have live pit stops. If you had an issue, you just had to come down during green. There was no time. If you had a flat tire, you had to come down during green. They had a set of tires down in the pits for the teams, but I believe they were just reused practice sets. I don't believe they had a fresh set of tires in the pits because, I mean, you don't want anyone getting an unfair advantage. So, it's one of the big intrigues I feel like of the West Series is you got these guys and kids. You don't have these kids just running the tires off in the first 50 laps. They have to manage them for the 150 laps. Last year, they did have a halfway break in this race, so I'm not sure if that is returning. But either way, having only that one set, it really teaches tire management. That's one of the things I appreciate about this series. You got to teach these kids not to run the tires off of them in the first 5 laps. But yeah, we had 17 last year, 16 this year, realistically. So not a huge drop off, no starting parks. The notable entries in the field, though, that we are seeing going after the championship right now, especially from what we saw at Irwindale, which gave us a good look at the championship. Sean Hingorani, despite him having a bad run at Phoenix and dropping well down in the points list, if he continues to have these great runs and wins and leading the most laps, with as many races are on the West schedule, he will climb his way back up before the season is over. The current West Series point standings after 2 races, they finally look more realistic following Irwindale because we finally got rid of all the main guys from Phoenix. Tyler Reif is still leading. Landon Lewis is second right now. He's only 2 points behind. So right now, so far, it looks like you could say it's only a 2-horse race, but we do have Hingorani and Huddleston who are really good. They just kind of had rough Phoenix races to really set them back. But I would still say we have about a 4 to 5 horse race for the actual championship. But right now, Landon Lewis and Tyler Reif are the closest together. Now, although Tyler Reif did win Phoenix, he did not have a good Irwindale. He did sneak a top 5 finish, but did not run very good at that track. So I'm really curious to see how Tyler Reif runs. Tyler Reif does run at this race compared to how he did last race. Because what we saw in the last race, the 50 was strong in the beginning, but then fell off at the end, and other cars came alive. The 15, he was kind of about third all race, and then he came alive. The 17 was never really the best car. It was kind of always the best second place car. And it was kind of the same back at Phoenix as well. So we'll see if that plays a factor into that as well. Bradley Erickson was just kind of there at Irwindale, didn't really do much, had a kind of a poor finish that dropped him down lower in the standings. Kyle Keller, although he's the better of the two teammates, better than Takuma Koga at Jerry Pitts Racing. Jerry Pitts Racing just doesn't necessarily have the actual funding, I would say, to really compete for the wins on a weekly basis, but they can definitely compete for top fives. Right now, Hingorani is only 13 points behind, but in these West Series fields of only 16, 13 points can seem like 50 in some ways. It's kind of hard to gain points, when guys like Tyler and Landon might only finish third and fourth, and even if he wins, you're still going to have a tough time getting that points gap back up. But I would not count Hingorani out just yet. I really wouldn't. The guys I would count out, Souza, Koga, even Tanner Reif. I don't know what has happened to BMR's ARCA team. I really don't. Ever since the switch to Chevrolet, Bill McAnally's truck team has been just fine. They recently got their first win at Atlanta a couple weeks ago. But, goddamn, their ARCA team has not done well one bit in any of their races. I think they've won one or two races in the Chevrolet program. It's not been very good. They don't even have the 99 car running this year with Cole Moore. That's how kind of bad it's gotten over there. They're literally down to just one ARCA car, which is really shocking. McAnally at some point was running 4 full-time ARCA West cars. And here we are now down to 1. So it tells you, even the big teams are having their own struggles, which sucks to see, man. It just sucks. It really does. And there's no real reason why. There's no real reason why I can give you guys here on the show. It just sucks. It's a plain simple fact there about it. But yeah, Tyler Reif is leading. Landon Lewis is second. Huddleston is third. Erickson is fourth. Keller is fifth. Bobby Hillis is down in 12th. Those are kind of the 14 full-time drivers right now. So it looks like we're going to have 14 full-time guys going for the championship, which is great to see, although only probably about 3 or 4 of them have a logistical chance. Still good to see that realistically the ARCA West Series is looking at 14 full-time cars this year, which is definitely a plus considering we did see some 13-car fields last year. So minimum of 14 cars. I know it's not the best field, but we have to look at the times. We can't compare the series back to 2007, 2009, when it was a lot easier to get your hands on a second-rate cup car, reskin it, don't even have to change the body, just reskin the paint and put a K&N logo on there and you're good to go. We're not in those days anymore. You have to buy a specific, I don't know if they run Ilmores on the West Circuit. I know more teams run the Yates motors. You have to get the composite bodies, of course. Chassis aren't hard to come by, of course. You can get a chassis very easily, but getting the composite body, getting the engine, and getting the parts is not as easy as it was, I would say, even just 7 to 8 years ago when the composite bodies were just debuting. So we have to look at all those aspects as to why the West Series is definitely not as high as it once was. But my picks for this weekend's ARCA West race, it is on Flow Racing. These races will be on at CNBC at some point, but not for the time being. My pick for this race will be Landon Lewis. I think he's going to go 2 for 2. I think Landon Lewis is going to go for 2 for 2. But an underdog pick, I will take the 41 of Tyler Reif because Loden Jackson Motorsports is considered one of the lower tier teams of the West Series. And before we move on to Talladega, let's get a quick look at the payouts. First place is $5,000. Of course, with all the contingency awards that ARCA has, the actual first place awards maximum payout is $12,750, $6,325 for second, and $4,050 for third. With a 16-car field, that means last place, 16th, is $1,150. Obviously, not where we would like the ARCA payouts to be, but unfortunately, there's nothing I can change about that. And for all the people that give Ron Drager crap about it, unfortunately, guys, I hate to say, but Ron Drager has no say about those payouts. Because again, guys, you've heard it right here on the podcast. I've complained about the payouts too, but there's nothing we can do. There's nothing Ron Drager can do. I believe it really is all sponsor driven. If they want up the payouts, then the sponsors got to pay out more. But yeah, guys, I think the ARCA West race will be fun. If you do have Flow Racing, I would I know there's a lot of good stuff on Saturday night, but I suggest tuning into it, at least for a little bit. I think you guys are going to like it. It's a lot of fun watching these West Series guys. A lot more closer racing. You wouldn't think for a 16-car field that it would be over entertaining, but the ARCA West guys know how to make a 16-car race look really fun, and race really hard. So, yeah, Saturday at now again for us, this is the West Coast, so you got to put this time into perspective. 11:15 p.m. Eastern, but you also guys got to think at Kern County they have local races like the local short tracks, local modifieds. It's a whole day of racing. 11:15 p.m. Eastern, that's 10:15 my time here in the Midwest. 11:15 in the West on the East Coast, but it's only 9:15. I believe it's 9:15 or 8:15 their time. So realistically, the times actually make sense over there, but kind of sucks for us over here. So if you still have a chance to watch it, guys, I would. But yeah, our pick for the race is Landon Lewis, and my underdog pick is Tyler Reif. So as we wanted to get the ARCA West Series out of the way, because obviously I know you guys are here for the main talks of Talladega, the big track of Talladega. As we shift into that, Talladega Superspeedway, obviously the biggest track that the ARCA Series runs on. The ARCA Series has been coming to Talladega for many, 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 many years. And, you know, while we've seen Daytona be able to get decent car counts. In fact, we saw Daytona get its highest car count in a long, long time with, I believe it was 39 or 40 cars. We had a great car count, but Talladega has struggled. Talladega has definitely been the weaker of the two plate races as of late with car counts. Just to give you guys an example, 2017, the last year that we ran the old school Gen 4 steel bodies, 2017, we had 36. In 2018, we had 31. That was the first year where composite bodies were mandatory at the plate tracks. 2019 were the tough years. 2019, we had a dismal 26th. The race was no good. And I admitted that. I mean, that's coming from an ARCA fan. 2019 race was no good. The 2020 race, I will almost say, was probably one of the worst ARCA races of all time. And that, again, that's coming from an ARCA fan. But that 2020 Talladega race was tough to watch. That had a dismal 21 cars. 2021 was a little bit better with 29. And last year, we had a great 33. And even better this year, we have 35 cars. So for all the people that are just talking about how ARCA is dead, ARCA is dying, it's not. We had our tough years, and we're rising back up, man. 35 cars. And looking at the entry list, we easily have a good 20, legitimately 20 cars that can actually win this race, not just compete in the lead draft. There are some cars that will run in the lead draft, but just don't have the capability of leading a race and winning, if that makes sense. They just kind of run in the lead draft. But I would say we have a good 20 cars that could legitimately win this race, not just run in the lead draft. And then, of course, you have your Ilmore stragglers that just can't run with the field. They unfortunately have the extra horsepower reduction, which only gets their cars about 170 miles per hour, which I think in general is so dumb. I don't understand why you're costing these teams so much extra time on tracks because, you know, for the people who think, oh, Brad's car is only turning out 170. Not really. If it didn't have the extra horsepower that they took out of it, Brad could probably still hit about 179, 180 by himself without the plate. But again, of course, I don't know if Brad wants to because that car is really old. But this is the debut of the Ford for Brad at the plate tracks. But going through the entry list here, we have Wayne Peterson's team who are bringing two cars. The Zero of Kevin Hinkle. You guys remember Kevin Hinkle? He's raced quite a bit in the Kansas tracks. He's from Kansas. Raced for Peterson, raced for Kimmel. Did mostly start in parks in his career, but he'll be in the 0. Andres Perez de Lara in the 2. Jack Wood in the 6. Eric Caudell returns to Talladega after his hard crash last year with Scott Melton in the 7. Sean Corr returns again for Empire Racing in the 8. Good old Ed Pampa in the 10, Bryce Hogberg in the 11. The 12 right now for Hillenburg is currently TBA. At the very least, I would expect Tim Monroe to drive it and do a start and park if needed. Amber Balkin is back in the 15. This is her second and final race currently scheduled for 2023. Taylor Gray, this is the interesting entry. Taylor Gray will be driving the 18 for Joe Gibbs. It was told to me about a month ago that the 18 would be a Tricon driver. This is not an entry from Tricon Garage. This is an entry from Joe Gibbs Racing. But it was told to me that it would be a Tricon driver. They just did not name who. And I kind of figured that Taylor would make the most sense, mainly because he has not competed in a plate race before. He has done the Daytona test. You guys might remember he did that stupid video where he recorded himself driving down the backstretch and got himself a $5,000 fine. Hopefully he doesn't do that again, but he'll be driving this race mainly, I'd say, to get some extra experience because he will be competing in his first plate race later this year in the truck race at Talladega. But it is kind of weird to see the Grays going back to Toyotas again. But yeah, so the 18, not a Tricon entry. It will be Joe Gibbs. It will be Joe Gibbs with Taylor Gray. Mobile One will be sponsoring the car. More than likely the exact same car from Daytona that Connor Mosack drove. Jesse Love, of course, in the 20. Brett Holmes, after everyone had figured that Brett Holmes had sold all of his ARCA equipment, I had heard from a couple people that he did not get rid of one car. Thank God he didn't. Brett Holmes is an amazing plate racer, and obviously with the truck series having an off weekend, and Brett's a great plate racer, like I just said, why not come out and run the ARCA race? You know, you might not get much for payouts, but you got sponsorship, so everything's going to be fine. So great to see the 2020 champion, Brett Holmes, back, even if it's just for a one-off. Gus Dean, you know, we see him run some plate races then and there and some races then and there for Venturini. Good to see him back. Tim Richmond is back, obviously, with that hard crash from Daytona. I don't know if they're going to get another car or if they've repaired the car, but either way, good to see Tim Richmond back. Frankie Muniz. Right now, no sponsorship listed on the 30 for Frankie. So I would imagine hopefully they can put something together to get the 30 some sponsorship, but good to see Frankie up there. Christian Rose in the 32, of course, for AM Racing. Greg Van Alst, the Daytona winner in the 35. Jason White, the near Daytona winner in the 44. Tony Cosentino in the 45. Brad in the 48. Patrick Emmerling in the 53. They are running the 53 from Emmerling Gase Motorsports. Tony Bradinger in the 55 again. Hunter Deschantel. I'm actually happy for Hunter because I felt so bad for him at Daytona. Literally 3 laps into the race, he ran over something and broke the radiator. It wasn't even his fault. He just ran over something. And I'm like, that really sucks. All that effort, you know, it's your first ARCA start, and it's over that quickly. So I feel for Hunter, and I'm glad that he's back again with Brian Dowsett. Maybe Brian felt bad for him and gave him another shot anyway. Either way, great to see him back again. Hopefully they can just finish the race and get Hunter the start he deserved. Steve Lewis Jr., obviously this was the X RSS car that they had purchased. They ran top 15 at Daytona. Great run for them. Logan Misaraka is back again with Jeff Spraker's team. John Garrett, of course, with Veer Motorsports and Andy Hillenburg. Scott Melton, interesting note, Scott Melton and the team are running the exact same car that Todd Gilliland won with this race in 2019. So, you know, Scott Melton, they got a great piece under them. They got a really, really good piece under them if they can just survive the race and not get crashed like they did at Daytona. The other pizza man of racing, Andy Jankowiak, will be back again in the 73. Mandy Chick, for her top 5 finish at Daytona, she'll be back in the 74. Brian Dowsett, the teammate to Hunter Deschantel in the 75. Kevin Campbell, he did enter Daytona. The car didn't have an engine. Hopefully now they actually have an engine in the car when they show up to Talladega. Caleb Costner in the 93 and Jason Kitzmill in the 97. And the other entries, the 0 entries, they just kind of put at the end of the entry list. 03 of Alex Club. It is not a Mullins entry. In fact, Willie Mullins Racing is not even here. Kind of surprising not to see the Mullins entries Alex Clubb will be running his own Ford in this race, and A.J. Moyer will be in the second Peterson entry. So a very stacked field of cars. I would say, like I said, the 4803 and the two Peterson cars will probably be the stragglers that won't be able to keep up. Not because the drivers can't physically do it, but the cars can't physically do it. Not doubting the teams, just the engines just don't have the capability of keeping up with the draft. And, those guys can't really afford a crash anyway. But overall, you guys, we got a very stacked field of good cars here. A lot of guys that could easily win this race. I look at Jesse Love, again, for his inexperience at Daytona, still got a very good finish. Jack Wood, I would say, is kind of the guy who probably has the most experience out of everyone in the field. Perez de Lara, this is his chance to really climb back into the championship hunt. As we mentioned, of course, he had to miss Daytona. Technically, if you guys remember back at our Daytona review, we talked about what they did with him. They ran a car with him, the 0-1. Technically, it was a Rev car under Andy Hillenberg's team, where they at least allowed him to run a practice lap to where that he could at least stay on the 50-point bonus after 5 races. So it would keep him in the championship hunt. And I like that ARCA does that. At least give him a chance. At least give him a chance to compete for the championship still. But our main series championship point standings right now, again, I'm not joking with this. Our top 3 in ARCA championship right now is Greg Van Alst, Frankie Muniz, and Tony Cosentino. That is the top 3 in ARCA points right now. I would not have predicted that at the start of the season. That is awesome that is our top 3 right now in points. Following 2 tough runs for Jesse Love, however, though, he is currently 26 points outside of the championship bubble, and it's the real big question. Can Greg Van Alst actually do it? Can he win the championship? If I will say this, with a 35-car field, if Jesse Love honestly has a bad run, if he crashes out or something happens to him and the 35 either has a great run or wins again, I would almost say that mathematically locks out. If Jesse Love falls more than 40 points behind following Talladega, I don't see how he could make that up. I don't see how Jesse could make that up. Greg Van Alst's team has obviously, there's more incentive now. I would even say for them, we know Greg does not have the money to go up against these guys. He just doesn't. It's no disrespect to him, but we know he just doesn't. He tries his best, though. We know that, though. But there's got to be more incentive at this point. Even if you don't have the money, you got to give it your all. And that's what we saw at Phoenix, I feel like. Greg ran a lot better at Phoenix than I thought he would. And I feel like we're going to see that out of Greg Van Alst the rest of the season. Like, wow, we're the championship leaders. We got a legitimate shot at this thing. Even if we don't have the funding to go week to week, we got to actually push it. We can't just go out there and get the best run we can while trying to take care of our equipment. We got to push for it. We got to go for it. And I believe that's where the 35 team is now going to go at this point. You got to go for it. You got to go for this championship. I think they would be dumb not to go for this championship. And I'm so proud of them, too. I mean, it's just very rarely do you see independents challenging for the ARCA championship nowadays. I think, who was the last independent ARCA champion? Who was it? Patrick Sheltra? Was he the last independent ARCA champion in like 2010? That was not like a Venturini driver or, yeah, I guess Brett Holmes. Okay, yeah, Brett Holmes. But still, I mean, even then, Brett Holmes, that was, God, I still can't believe he won that championship either. Yeah, I guess Brett Holmes, Patrick Sheltra, maybe the last couple guys who really were independents who won the ARCA championship. Talking about more people in the field, Frankie Muniz, he had a top 5 caliber car at Daytona. They just had some bad luck. He had a great top 10 result at Phoenix, and he's sitting second. Tony Cosentino, we know he's not a championship. It's not a championship caliber team. They've just had good luck so far to start the season. Top 15 at Daytona, and I believe a good top 20 at Phoenix have now put them third. Jesse Love, of course, is down in fourth. Christian Rose has been Christian Rose this season, fifth in points. Jack Wood has competed in both races, but he will not be full-time. He will not be full-time in the 6, but currently 6 in the points. Andres Perez de Lara, the other guy we were talking about, the other possible championship favorite, he gained a lot of points on Jesse Love, and that's the more important thing to look at it like that. Even though he's 38 points behind Greg Van Alst, he is only 12 points behind Jesse Love. So for that 2 car, I would really say the goal for them would be to go for after the 20. Gain as many points as you can on the 20, because realistically, when we did our offseason picks and offseason podcasts, they were the top 2, in my opinion, the top 2 favorites for the championship. Now, could the 6 of Jack Wood go for the championship like some of you guys are saying in the chat? Yes, he definitely has the money to. He definitely has the money to go for the championship, but he's driving the majority of the truck season, and I think he wants to focus on that. But yeah, Frankie Muniz, as we didn't really expect him to be a championship contender, kind of just been 2 good runs to start the season. And it's not doubting Frankie Muniz and not really doubting the 30 team, but overall just the inexperience of Frankie, I feel like will cost him eventually when we get to some of the other ovals. The road courses, I expect him to be a ringer on, but some of the other ovals, like when we get to a Michigan or when we get to tracks like that, like the dirt tracks especially, I feel like he's going to struggle there. But yeah, for Greg Van Alst, man, the real incentive to push it. And it makes me wonder how they're going to approach this race. I said at Daytona that this was one of the best, if not the best ARCA race at Daytona I have ever seen. A lot of people praised that ARCA race. Slap Shoes, shout out to him on Twitter. He said for all the crap that ARCA gets, they were the only race on Speed Week to finish under green. For all the people that expected that ARCA race to be a joke, in my opinion, the ARCA race stole the show that weekend. We had a great race, multiple comers and goers. We had our couple of crashes. We had our Dale Quarterly moments. It was a great race. And we had an amazing underdog winner that truly embodied the real spirit, in my opinion, of stock car racing. So I just, I think we're in line for that again. Obviously the draft package has changed. These cars can really move around instead of be sucked around in a draft, not being able to do anything. We got plenty of cars now to actually have competitive racing again. We got the underdogs who can actually perform well again. I mean, so many good variables coming into this race. Now, last year's ARCA race at Talladega was cut short due to time constraints. Remember, that was stupid. We had 33 start the race. We had some early retirements due to engine failures. Of course, we had the big one on lap 48, which destroyed Scott Melton's car, destroyed Eric Caudill's car. Richard Garvey went for a slide halfway, tipped over in the air. Brayton last year, I think he blew a tire or something. And, of course, Tony Breidinger, they were all involved in that. That's where the infamous little rivalry started with Tony Breidinger and Richard Garvey that lasted for a little bit. Just that was kind of the biggest moment of that crash. That took so long to clean up because they had to cut the roof off the 69 to get Scott Melton out of the car. I remember we had that really stupid kind of finish that was called out of nowhere. The next flag ends the race. And although it looked like that Brett Holmes had won the race, Nick Sanchez actually pulled off and won that race. Despite Drew Dollar being the dominant car, it was Nick Sanchez that would go on to win that race. Of course, Nick Sanchez not in the field. Kind of surprising, I would say. With this being a truck race off weekend, I actually would have expected Nick Sanchez to be entered in this race in a third entry to maybe help the 2 and maybe help the 6. So I will say it's kind of surprising. I will definitely say it's kind of surprising that Nick Sanchez is not in this race. I would have easily figured that Rev would have entered in a third car for this race. So I'm kind of shocked by that. Other notables not in this race from last year. Corey Heim, we know he's been strong on the plate tracks. He is now focusing full-time on his truck efforts. Raja Karuth, he's now in Xfinity and truck. Drew Dollar is all but retired. And yeah, pretty much everyone else in the field is kind of in this race from last year. It's just really shocking to see Willie Mullins not here. Willie Mullins, we know he loves the plate track. It's the real chance for them to shine and run up front. So I would really say that was surprising to not see him in this race, even with just the 3. So we'll just have to see where it goes, man. We'll have to see where it goes. No Dale Quarterly either. I thought that was kind of disappointing to see how well Dale Quarterly ran at Daytona, not to see him here. The outright rookies in the field, of course, we got Frankie Muniz. Of course, we got, I would say Amber. She's still a rookie because she hasn't had a lot of plate, even though she's had, 4 starts, still not quite a bit of plate track experience. Patrick Emmerling, I would consider him a rookie. I don't know if he's even run a plate race before. Kevin Campbell, he would be considered a rookie. Mandy Chick would probably still be considered a rookie. Just a lot of factors. A lot of rookies in the field. Like I said, the cars that I don't think will be able to keep up with the field, the 06, the 03, probably the 82, the 48, maybe some of the Hillenberg cars can keep up. Some usually can't. And then the 0. So I would say out of our 35 cars we do have entered, I would say about 28 can probably keep up in the lead draft. And like I said, about 20 of them can actually win. So a very stacked field of cars. If there's one thing we did see at Daytona, although Amber Balkin was definitely all over the place, she had a rocket ship. There's no doubt about that. Amber Balkin, for all the time she just about crashed but saved it, that car could suck up like there was no tomorrow. Like, she really had a good car. It was quite amazing how good her car was. She earned that top 10 finish. She really did. She really did earn that top 10 finish. She really did earn that top 10 finish. Did she finish? Yeah, 6th. She earned that finish. That car was good. Yeah, no starting parks in this race. The only starting park I could see is the 12, if that happens to be Tim Monroe. Obviously, 12 is going to be a full-time car. Andy wants to keep that car up on the owner points. God, it's just so hard to pick. It's so hard to pick in this. I would not have picked Greg Van Alst to win Daytona, and he ended up winning. So Talladega is one of those unpredictable races. But for a race pick, I'm gonna go with Brett Holmes as my race pick, the 23. I'm gonna pick him, and my underdog pick, I'm actually gonna go with Jason White again. I'm gonna go with Jason White. So. Those are going to be my picks for this race. You guys can put who you guys want in the chat. I think, like I said, it's going to be a fun race. Hopefully time constraints don't screw us again this year. I don't think even we have the car count for a big crash like that, but I don't think we're going to. The problem is that the crashes that we saw are kind of the crashes that you see kind of once in a lifetime. You don't usually see Scott Melton and Eric Caudill's crash all the time. So I don't think the possibility of that happening again is too high. Will we see a big crash? Probably. Talladega is definitely a different animal than Daytona. It's a lot more wider. It's a lot more crazier, a lot more faster. Definitely just going to be a crazy one for sure. Looks like we got, there could be rain in the forecast though. Lovely. Dang it, Dawson. You got to do that to us. Well, I don't know. There could be rain in the forecast though. Talladega does not have lights. Well, I will say this though. Unfortunately for the ARCA series, when they get rained out, they don't run the race on Sunday. They run them on Monday because apparently they can't compete with Cup, which I think is stupid. At least that's what they did to us back in 2021. They weren't going to let us run on Sunday. They had to let us. We were going to run on Monday. Thankfully, we did get the race in on Saturday. So hopefully we don't see that. There's no reason to have these ARCA teams stay 2 extra days like that. So that's kind of good. Like I said, very solid stacked field of cars. It's great to see ARCA growing this much again. For all the years, like I said, people burying this series, making stupid videos about the series. You know who I'm talking about. For all that crap, it's such good to see the haters getting shut up. An amazing race at Daytona, an amazing race at Phoenix. And I have no doubt in my mind that Talladega is once again going to be a banger race. I don't like the next-gen package. And frankly, some of the Xfinity races lately on plate tracks have been snoozes. I'm not going to lie. The Xfinity race at Daytona this year, I didn't really enjoy it that much. And I was there. I didn't really enjoy it that much. Sometimes they can become trains on the outside. The ARCA race, in my opinion, stole the show at Daytona. And hot take, it wouldn't shock me if the ARCA race is the best race of the weekend. It wouldn't shock me. I know you guys might laugh at that, but it really wouldn't shock me. You got a lot of hungry people who are looking for a win, and you got a lot of people who are looking for a good run. For Jesse Love's sake, this is going to be the interesting part to look at in this race. How do the 35, the 20, and the 2 race each other? Do you try to stay out front the whole time and avoid the crash altogether, or do you try to do the old ride in the back situation? In my opinion, for the 20 and the 2, you can't ride in the back. You got to go. You got to get up front. You got to lead laps to get the points and try to keep yourself in hunt for that win. For the 35, you can kind of play your game soft, maybe run in the lead draft, top 5, top 10, but not necessarily put yourself in a risky situation. So I could see the 20 and the 2 racing so hard that they might even crash each other in the race. I think the 18 of Taylor Gray is going to be the big wild factor in this race. Although he has run laps in this race, he does not have any prior experience. Now, thankfully, they're not just going to throw him to the wolves out there. ARCA does have, compared to the other series that no longer do practice at the plate tracks, which again I think is really stupid. I understand the teams asked for it, but when you're bringing someone who's never been in an Xfinity car or Cup car to a plate race, they could definitely use 5 to 10 minutes of just shakedown laps. I don't like that. I know the teams asked for it, but a lot of times the teams have shot themselves in the foot because of it. But yeah, they're going to have, I believe they are going to have a practice session. I'm looking at the schedule right now. First time meeting, track services meeting, garage opens. Yes, right here on Friday, actually. It'll be on Friday. Final practice with groups. So it's about a group of, well, let's see here. This kind of makes it easy. If there's only 35 cars entered and all 35 show up, it's easy. You do 5 groups with 7 cars each, and you give them about 5 to 6 minutes. That's all you need. That I feel like that's kind of all you need. And I really wish NASCAR would do that. You could say it's kind of stupid to an extent. You could say that. But I feel like in the same time, for Xfinity and Cup, it would be a good shakedown. Get the oil temps up. See if the car's handling right. And my biggest example of that would have been Atlanta. We saw Cesar Baccarella's car break on the first lap. Now, I know practice would have been rained out anyway, but it's just an example. A car could break on the first lap. Well, if they had practiced, they would have figured that issue out and repaired it. So I wish NASCAR would adopt the idea of minor practice sessions. You don't have to have big packs of cars, but even getting a couple of shakedown laps is more beneficial than just sending the car out there for qualifying when literally anything could happen to it. An engine failure if something wasn't hooked up correctly, or in the case of 13 of Chandler Smith, the car shuts off. Or in the case of Connor Daly at Daytona when the car was bouncing up and down like crazy. So I like the fact that ARCA does group qualifying. It'll give rookies like Taylor Gray some laps on the track before he gets into that car. I'm sure he's done plenty of simulator time, but obviously the real deal is a lot more different than just doing simulators. But yeah, so I think it's going to be a fun race. I'm already saying it's going to steal the show for the weekend once again because that's what the ARC Series, in my opinion, does best. It is before the Xfinity race, of course. It is before the Xfinity race. We will take you guys through the payout sheet. Obviously, the plate tracks tend to pay out a little bit better than the usual tracks on the schedule do. First place is 17,000. Sorry, guys, I'm a little congested. First place is 17,500 with all the contingency awards. First place is actually 26,600, 20,050 for second. and 15,450 for third. And with 35 cars entered, last place is $2,200. Maximum starting field of 40, of course, but we're not going to have 40. And yes, live Saturday, April 22nd, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So it's going to be an early one, guys. 12:30 on the East Coast, and my time will be 11:30. So it's going to be an early bird one, guys. So don't sleep in too late. Don't sleep in too late on Saturday, or else you guys will miss it. You guys will miss it. But I highly suggest you guys tune into this race. You guys know I wouldn't lie to you. I will tell you if an ARCA race was bad. We've been honest about that on this podcast before. I will tell you if an ARCA race is bad. I will hype up an ARCA race to tell you guys to watch it. And I'm telling you, you guys need to watch this race. It's FS1. So a lot of you guys do get FS1. You don't have to pay for it. So I strongly suggest you guys watch this race because I truly feel that they're going to, just like Daytona, they are going to steal the show once again. They are going to steal the show for sure. Because I'm just telling you, I'm not a big fan of the next gens at the plate tracks, and the Xfinity Series has been largely disappointing the last couple times. So lots of rookies, lots of potential for crashes. Is Greg Van Alst going to extend his championship lead? Hopefully so, because I'm telling you, can say we have to be unbiased here, but you know what? Let's face it. We all want Greg Van Alst to win the championship. I'm sorry. I know there's fans of Frankie Muniz out there. I love Frankie Muniz. Who doesn't love Frankie Muniz? But let's face it. In this day and age, we all want to see the underdog independent take it to the big teams and conquer them and win the championship. That's why Brett Holmes' 2020 championship was so cool. It just sucked at the same time because it was at the height of COVID. So we really couldn't enjoy it as much as we should have. We should have, you know. I really feel if Greg Van Alst can win the championship, it'll be such an awesome moment for ARCA, such an awesome moment for the series, and really just give a good spotlight that, hey, an independent by himself at his age, he's not even a young guy anymore. He's in his 40s now. I mean, it's still not old, but it's like you're not a young guy anymore. And he's taking it to them like a boss. I'm just so excited to see what the 35 team has in store for this race and the rest of the season. Whew. Long podcast tonight, guys. But again, I thank you guys for tuning in. Obviously, tomorrow night, we will not be here. Got some personal things I have to attend to that, as you guys know, my personal life has not been going very well the last couple months, but I've been trying to work it out, and hopefully tomorrow we can get something figured out to get that better. But we will be back on Thursday. Backmarker Battles, we usually split it up into two shows, but since we were doing the ARCA Racing podcast tonight, Backmarker Battles will be back to its original format for 1 week only on Thursday, when we do our Martinsville review and our Talladega preview. So that'll be that. We also have a fun content video coming out for Sterling Marlin's. Sterling Marlin, of course, was named top 75 greatest NASCAR drivers. Obviously deserved. Love Sterling Marlin, and we'll be putting out a video of him later this week. So tune into that on Friday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday night. Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, one last message. Remember to hit that bell, turn on that bell for notifications, like and subscribe to the podcast. And yeah, I will catch you guys on Thursday. Wow, I'm getting worn out with doing these podcasts, but god dang, I love them. So you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday night. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go eat some dinner, and we will see y'all real soon. So long, guys. Colby Evans signing off.